Hey everyone, so today we're going to jump into this really incredible ancient fable. It's got a lesson that is just as powerful now as it was thousands of years ago. It's a story about trees, yeah, but really, it's a story about all of us.
Okay, let's just let that sink in for a second. This one line, it's pretty much the heart of everything we're talking about today. It comes from a teaching called the Ruka Dhamma Jataka, and it really makes you question this whole idea of what it means to be strong.
Think about it. We tend to really admire that solitary strength, don't we? The lone hero, the self-made success story, that single towering figure. But this story, well, it suggests that being all alone might actually be our biggest weakness. And the answer to this question, it comes from this amazing fable about tree deities who lived way back when in the Himalayan forests.
All right, so here's where the story kicks off. All of these tree spirits had to choose where they were going to live. And their leader, who was super wise, actually the Bodhisattva, he saw two very different paths they could take, and he gave them some really important advice.
That was his advice. I mean, how simple is that? But it's also so deep. He was begging his family, basically, to stick together in this dense grove of trees, to build a community where they could literally hold each other up. He knew the world was full of dangers you can't always see coming, and their best shot was to face it together.
And this is where it gets really fascinating, because it lays out two totally different ways of thinking. You had the wise ones who were all about mutual support, but the others? Oh, they were tempted by something we can all relate to, that desire for individual glory. You know that feeling? Wanting to be the one that stands out, the one that gets all the attention, the offerings, the prestige that comes with being the biggest, most impressive tree on the hill. They basically gambled, choosing personal fame over the quiet power of the group.
But every choice has its consequences. And one day, a force of nature was about to come along and put both of their choices to the ultimate test.
And we are not talking about just a little blustery day here, no. This was a Mahavatapaya, a terrifying, ferocious storm that just ripped across the land. It was this raw elemental power, a wind so strong it could literally shatter the biggest, strongest trees like they were nothing.
And boom, here's what happened. Out on those hills, all those glorious standalone trees, they were torn right out of the ground. All their massive trunks and huge branches meant nothing against that wind. But back in the dense forest, not a single tree fell. Not one. Why? Because their branches were all tangled together, their roots were all intertwined, so when the wind blasted one tree, all the others held it up. They faced that storm as a single unit. So you can imagine, these other deities, now totally homeless and seriously humbled, they dragged themselves back to the deep forest. They told the wise leader what happened, and he used that exact moment to explain the lesson they had just learned the hard way.
And this all boils down to one powerful idea, Ruka Dhamma. It's the principle of the trees. It's this simple, beautiful law of nature that tells us that real strength, real safety, real resilience, it comes from being connected to each other. It's a law of the forest that is, honestly, a perfect law for us too.
And get this wasn't just some fairy tale the Buddha told for fun. He actually told this story for a super practical reason. His own family, his relatives, were literally about to go to war with each other over who got to use the water from a river. He showed up and told them this story to stop them, to remind them that family, like trees in a forest, are supposed to stand together, not fight.
So, okay, that's an old story. What does it have to do with us, right now, in a world that's always telling us to stand out and go it alone? Well, how can we actually use this Ruka Dhamma, this principle of the trees, in our everyday lives?
Well, it really starts by figuring out who's in your forest. First, you've got your grove, your family, your closest friends. You gotta nourish those relationships, check in on them, because their strength is your strength. Then there's your team at work or school. It's not just about being the star player, it's about making everyone around you stronger. A strong team can weather any storm. And finally, there's the bigger forest, your neighborhood, your city. Get involved, contribute, because we're all connected and we all do better when we all do better.
When you really think about it, the lesson of the trees is just so simple and so powerful. Trying to be big and impressive all by yourself just makes you a bigger target for the storms that life throws at you. But being connected, being supportive, being part of a community, that's what makes you strong, safe, and you know what? Way happier.
So the biggest takeaway from this beautiful story is really a wish for all of us to find that connection and that well-being. May you find strength and shelter in your own forest, with your own community. And in doing that, may you all be happy.